The ALH System-Three machine drills and taps 3-inch, 4-inch, and 5-inch NPT threads in steel or cast iron gas mains from 12-inch to 48 inches in diameters at pressures up to 60 psi under gas-free conditions. The System-Three platform is also capable of inserting or extracting plugs, deploying gas bags, and launching cameras. The lightweight machine is mostly constructed of modular aluminum components, making it easily handled by one person with no lifting equipment, even in the deepest of excavations. To begin, clean all components of the System-Three equipment prior to use. Pay particular attention to any O-rings, grooves, and matching surfaces. Any dirt in these areas should be wiped off. Clean the area of the pipe where the saddle will be positioned, removing all corrosion and scale so that the saddle rubber will seal properly. Also, clean the area of the pipe where the chains will be positioned. This will ensure the chains will seat correctly and not loosen when any scale under them is crushed. Failure to carry out proper cleaning may allow the saddle to move and gas to escape. Select the correct size saddle to match the pipe size and place it on the pipe. Fit the saddle gasket. Place the valve on top of the saddle, making sure it fits into the saddle recess. Then place the valve canopy on top of the valve. Fit the chain hanger assembly so the bar and bolt engages the valve canopy hooks. Next, feed the chains underneath the pipe. To fit the chains into the hooks, simply bend the chain so the chain pin will engage the top hook slot first before attempting to engage the pin into the bottom hook slot. Tighten the chains equally and alternately. Do not completely tighten one chain before tightening the other. Once the chains are initially tight, tap the chains with a hammer to ensure that all links lie flat against the pipe. Then retighten the chains until moderate resistance is felt. Do not over-tighten. Operate the valve gate with the valve wrench and check it fully opens and closes easily. Always remove the valve wrench from the operator after use and place it aside while working. This will prevent anyone from accidentally opening the valve. Next, select the correct size tap and shell cutter. Wind the feed cap up by turning it counterclockwise so the drill shaft square base is inserted into the drill head square. Fit the tap by sliding it on the keyed shaft with the tapered tooth edge facing the end of the shaft. Then install the shell cutter. Secure the combination with the tap retaining bolt. Tighten with the box wrench. Give it a wrap to fully tighten. Evenly place the 3 magnets inside the shell cutter. These will collect swarf and help retain the coupon. Liberally apply the recommended tapping and cutting compound to the tap and shell cutter. This cutting paste melts slowly as frictional heat is generated. Unlike evaporating sprays or running oils, it maintains efficient lubrication throughout the drilling and tapping operation, prolonging the life of the tap and cutter. Next, lift the drill head and place it on the valve canopy. Line up the bolt holes and fit the bolts. At this point, do not tighten the nuts. Only fit the nuts by catching the first few threads. Once all nuts and bolts have been fitted, check to make sure the valve is in the open position. Ensure the shaft locking collar is in the down position. The index plunger on the shaft locking collar must be fully engaged in one of the lower shaft holes. Wind the feed cap down by turning it clockwise to lower the drill shaft until the tip of the shell cutter touches the pipe. Once you feel the shell cutter touch, back off one full turn counterclockwise. Next, spray lubricate each guide bar with silicone and slide them through the drill head bushing, and tighten the guide bars into the valve canopy by hand. Snug each guide bar using an adjustable wrench. Slide the tapping depth guide collar over one of the guide bars. Then place the nylon C snap-on depth gauge onto the diagonal opposite guide bar. Now you can fully tighten all of the bolts in a diametrically opposed sequence. Once the drill head has been fully tightened, pressure test the assembly according to company procedures with the valve in the open position to mains operating pressure by connecting the gauge assembly onto the 1/4-inch valve located on the canopy. Make sure the valve equalizer is closed. When the pressure test is complete, open the valve to release the pressure and disconnect the gauge assembly. Close the 1/4-inch valve. Slide the air motor and torque multiplier assembly over the guide bars. Fit the air motor exhaust hose and feed it through the handle. This will help keep it in place and make it easier to divert exhaust air away from the work area. Next, connect the air supply to the quick connect fitting located at the top of the air motor torque multiplier assembly. In order to produce high torques in a relatively small air drive unit, the air motor is fitted with special planetary gear trains that must be lubricated and protected from dirt and grease. A special air preparation unit supplied with the machine must be used along with the additive enriched lubrication oil. The air preparation unit contains an air filter regulator, a high-performance water filter, and a lubricator. The air inlet is a 1/2-inch NPT male connection. A minimum compressed air output supply of 40 CFM at 90 psi is required, which then must be regulated down to 76 psi for efficient operation. When the needle points to the red zone on the high-performance water filter, the filter element needs to be changed. To lubricate the dry air, the oil drip feed should be set to deliver 1 drop of special airline lubricant every 10 seconds. The included air outlet hose make it easy to connect the air preparation unit to the air motor torque multiplier assembly. The air motor is a simple push-button operation. It has 2 speeds, fast and slow. The high-speed setting is for the cutting operation, and the low-speed setting is for tapping. The direction collar can be set to forward, reverse, or neutral. Warning: never place the direction collar in between settings and push the start button. This could damage the air motor. To begin the cutting operation, turn the air supply on, set the speed control to fast, and turn the direction collar to the forward position. The air motor is fitted with a hex socket which drives the drill shaft, and must fully engage the hex on the drill shaft. When placing the air motor torque multiplier over the drill head, at times it is necessary to turn the socket by quickly pressing the start button to engage the hex. Next, it is important to mark the tap depth on the guide bars prior to drilling. To do this, hold the 4-inch long tap depth gauge against the underside of the torque hood. Then slide the guide collar until it touches the gauge. Tighten the timing screw to set in place. The Nylon C snap-on depth gauge that was placed on the guide bar earlier is used as a backup tap depth indicator in the unlikely event that the guide collar moves. If, for any reason, the tap gauge or guide collar is unavailable, the operator can simply measure 4 inches from the underside of the torque hood and use a piece of adhesive tape to mark the shaft. Now we are ready to begin the drilling operation. Double check to make sure the air motor torque multiplier assembly is set to the fast and forward setting. Fit the extension bar onto one of the feed cap handles. Press and hold the start button to power the drill shaft. Gently turn the feed cap clockwise to feed the shell cutter downwards to drill into the pipe. When you feel less resistance on the feed bar and hear a slight change in the motor pitch, the shell cutter has broken through the pipe. Look through the window to make sure the handle on the index plunger is facing the window for hand access. It may be necessary to carefully rotate the drill shaft by depressing the start button. Do this prior to completely winding down the feed cap. Continue to wind the feed cap down until it stops. This means the tap is in contact with the pipe. Next, move the shaft locking collar to the upper hole on the drill shaft and engage the index plunger. For the tapping operation, set the direction collar to the forward position and the speed control to slow. Press and hold the start button to begin tapping. In most cases, the weight of the shaft is sufficient to start the tap cutting. It will pull itself into the pipe. If this is not the case, gently feed the tap downwards, slowly, by winding the feed cap clockwise. As the tap progresses, the underside of the torque hood will close the gap on the guide collar. When the gap is between an 1/8 to a 1/16, release the start button to stop the motor. Tapping is now complete. Next, wind the feed cap up until it is about an 1/8 of an inch away from the bottom of the shaft collar. It is extremely important to not operate the air motor until the feed cap has been wound up to an 1/8 of an inch from the bottom of the shaft collar. Tap damage will result if the feed cap is not in the correct position while reversing the tap under power. To reverse the tap out of the pipe, set the direction collar to reverse and the speed setting to slow. When the shaft begins to bounce slightly, the tap is fully disengaged from the pipe. At this time, release the start button to stop the air motor and disconnect the air supply. Remove the air exhaust discharge hose. Then remove the air motor torque multiplier assembly simply by pulling it up over the guide bars. Prior to storing the air motor torque multiplier, spray a small amount of aerosol rust inhibitor directly into the inlet port. Then reconnect the air supply, set to forward, and depress the start button for about a half a second to coat the vanes to protect against corrosion. Remove each guide bar using the adjustable wrench. Next, wind the feed cap down until you can move and engage the shaft collar into the lower shaft hole. Then rotate the feed cap counterclockwise to lift the shell cutter out of the pipe. Please note, when winding up the drill shaft, make sure to line up the X located on the drill shaft flats with one of the guide bar holes. If necessary, use the upper box wrench to turn the shaft. This will ensure the square on the bottom of the shaft will locate itself into the square recess within the drill head base to fully retract the shell cutter to above the System-Three valve. The shaft is fully retracted when the brass threads become visible at the base of the feed cap. Close the valve. Bleed off any excess gas that remains by opening the small valve on the canopy. Then remove the drill head. To remove the coupon, place the ends of two flathead screwdrivers inside the shell cutter spaces on both sides and gently pry out the coupon. You can also use the screwdriver to remove the magnets. Fit the swarf removal tool onto the shaft and secure it by placing the socket head cap screw through the swarf removal tool and through the shaft. Then tighten with the hex wrench. Lubricate the shaft and fit the shaft through the flange. Place the assembly onto the canopy and secure with the bolts. Pull up on the shaft to make sure the swarf removal tool is above the valve. Open the valve and push down on the shaft. Turn the shaft approximately 360 degrees to collect the swarf. Then retract the shaft and close the valve. Bleed off the excess gas and remove the assembly. To complete the operation, the System-Three can install 3-inch, 4-inch, and 5-inch PLCS low-profile plugs, or standard malleable plugs. The PLCS low-profile plugs offer superior sealing capability as opposed to the standard malleable plug. The NPT threads are precision manufactured, offering high-quality threads. This is important since today many plugs are manufactured in other parts of the world with unpredictable quality standards. If any gas happens to get past the threads, the plug's contour cap compresses the sealing O-ring against the main when the bolt is tightened to further ensure a gas-tight seal. The bonded sealing washer under the bolt head completes the seal. Its low-profile design helps avoid accidental damage from a backhoe bucket. Steel construction and corrosion-resistant zinc plating make it a perfect fit to finish any tapping operation without the headaches of leaking plugs. To install the PLCS low-profile canopy plugs, the components shown here are needed. They include the plug carrier shaft, retaining spindle, flange, adapter, and wrench. Remove the bolt and cap from the low-profile plug and finger tighten the adapter into the plug. Use an 1.1/8" socket to gently tighten the adapter flush with the plug's recessed surface. To ensure a leak-free seal, apply PLCS thread seal mastic to the threads of the low-profile plug. Use a knife to cut a small piece off of the block and roll it into a worm. Then push the material thoroughly into the threads. Next, place the plug carrier shaft fitted with the retaining spindle into the square recess. Finger tighten the retaining spindle until noticeable resistance is felt. This holds the plug on the shaft during the plug insertion operation. Fit the complete assembly onto the valve canopy and tighten with the bolts. Pull up on the shaft to fully retract the plug to above the valve. Open the valve and push down on the shaft until it stops. Maintain slight downward pressure and turn the shaft counterclockwise until you hear or feel a thread skip. Then turn clockwise to fully tighten the plug into the tapped hole. Loosen the retaining spindle. Open the small bleed valve to verify the plug has created a seal and to release any excess gas. Then remove the flange assembly. Loosen the chains and remove the remaining System-Three components. Use a rag to clean any metal shavings or debris around the plug. This is where the cap and sealing O-ring will be placed. Remove the adapter. Tighten the low-profile plug with a low-profile plug torque and removal wrench. Secure the wrench with a low-profile bolt to prevent the wrench from slipping off the plug while tightening. Once the plug has been fully tightened, place the O-ring over the edges of the plug. Then fit the canopy over the O-ring so the curve of the canopy matches the curve of the pipe. Tighten the bolt with a wrench. The operation is now complete. The System-Three is also capable of installing standard malleable plugs. The plug carrier, which has a recessed square, is fitted onto the shaft that contains a magnet to hold the plug. The shaft fits into the same 6-bolt flange used in the low-profile plug operation and fastened to the valve canopy. To install the plug, simply pull up on the shaft to fully retract the plug to above the valve. Open the valve and push down on the shaft until it stops. Maintain slight downward pressure and turn the shaft counterclockwise until you hear or feel a thread skip. Then turn clockwise and fully tighten the plug into the tapped hole. Open the small bleed valve to verify that the plug has created a seal and to release any excess gas. Then remove the assembly. An inspection cover, shown here, can be fitted onto the valve to view the tapped hole or inside the main.